Tesla's been in the news now more than ever. It's a company that was founded in, what was it, 2008?
3.
2003. And we've known about them for a very long time. But now more than ever are the general public jumping on board and being informed and just now finding out what we've already known, that sustainable vehicles are the future. Electric is going to surpass gasoline. And Tesla not only has that lead in EV sales, but also the technology that's going to be the new standard in the industry. For years, the automakers themselves, the competing automakers, have said that Tesla had a few year advantage, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the electric car space. But that's been 2, 3, 4, 5 years since then. So now that we're here, do you still think they have that advantage? Or do you think others are catching up?
I mean, they started to catch up simply just by the fact that they started actually producing electric cars, but even now they hold a significant advantage in terms of technology, because all we have to do is look back even just 1 year, and we've seen the Volkswagen CEO say that Tesla's still years ahead. Japan did a teardown of a Model 3 last year, and I believe it was executives from either Toyota or Honda or Nissan or all three of them or some of the three. They were like, this is also pretty ahead of what we are doing or even planning. So even though it's been, 2, 3, 4, 5 years since automakers were saying that Tesla had a lead,
they're still saying it.
They are still saying it, and it may no longer be a 5-year advantage, but it's still 4, 3-year advantage. And a big part of it comes down to the fact that a lot of the legacy automakers are still in their infancy in regards to their electrification efforts, and the greatest way to gain experience and advances in technology is by actually producing something and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And whilst they are either in the planning phase or producing very little volume, I don't know if they're gaining a good amount of experience to be able to catch up to what Tesla is bringing to the table anytime soon.
Do you think Tesla's lead will remain a constant? You think anyone will be able to catch up? I mean, previously it was seemingly an easy answer. All these legacy automakers know what they're doing. They already have the sales. They have the money. All they had to do was invest in the tech. But now Tesla's surpassed the startup stage. They're a huge company with a lot of money, and they're up there side by side with them.
Well, sooner or later, technically, I think everyone should catch up because, like I said, sooner or later, there's going to be a point where the diminishing returns and constantly advancing technology is just not worth the effort, at least for a little bit, until someone somewhere finds some sort of spark, that they find some sort of new material or production process that makes everything easier and cheaper to make. There will be a point where I feel like Tesla will hit, a very comfortable point in terms of the price that they can produce their cars at, and where, much further efforts in both money and time is just now worth the payout of it. So they're gonna eventually, I assume, stall out a little bit because they've hit a peak, and they won't have to really do that much more rapid innovations. And at that point, it kind of gives time for everyone else to catch up, or at least be within, as Elon likes to say, an order of magnitude within what Tesla can bring to the table. So that's one scenario in which they catch up. Another scenario is, like you said, these are very established automakers. They have a lot of money to throw around. As soon as they start actually producing a decent amount of electric cars, I feel like they will be able to gain an appreciable amount of knowledge and experience and will be able to further refine their technologies. But until they start actually producing electric cars in the hundreds of thousands a year, I don't think they're going to make any big leaps and bounds towards Tesla.
Let's talk about where exactly Tesla's lead is. I think it comes down to 5 different categories. You have the cost, right? They're able to produce some of the most affordable cars for their range.
Right.
You have their battery, where they're able to get the most range per kilowatt in the industry.
Right.
Their technology in the sense of autopilot.
Yep.
And then you have the technology in the sense of OTA and constant improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing is, obviously the leading sales.
Right.
But who is their main competitor in each of these components? Who's going to be the first to actually show up side by side with them? I don't think it has to be one company. I think if you're looking for a car with the most range, you're just going to want the car with the most range, not necessarily the car that also has the technology. Yeah, Tesla's the best car all around,
Mm-hmm.
but someone doesn't have to beat each one. Someone can beat one aspect. You know what I mean?
Win those people over.
Yeah. Win that category of people who want more technology. Maybe someone wants a more luxurious car. So who's closest? In range, I think with a comparable price, speaking strictly Model 3, Model Y in the more affordable area, I think the Mach-E is probably closest in range, right? At 300 and what miles?
It's around 300 miles. The Nissan Ariya is supposed to have 300 miles. If once again, if we completely break down any price barriers, I mean, we obviously have Lucid supposedly coming with 500 plus miles.
And well, again, just going to the more
Right.
affordable sector, this 300 miles is what, a 10 to 15% less than what Tesla can do with their Model 3 and Model Y.
Around, yeah.
But they're also, keep in mind that the Mach-E sets aside like 10 kilowatts for degradation, while Tesla's allowing you to use 100% of the battery.
Right.
In theory, the Mach-E could be side by side with Tesla in range if they allowed for the 100% of the battery. Again, it's still using a bigger battery, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla's still beating them in price per kilowatt and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
But for the same price, if Ford wanted, they could be side by side with Tesla in range.
Right. Well, you would hope.
Yeah.
As we know, not a lot of stuff is linear. So just because you have 10% more here doesn't mean you'll end up with 10% more somewhere else. The ID3 is supposed to have over 300 miles on their top end range, but Volkswagen kind of, as I just said, they didn't have full experience and faced into a lot of production hiccups when it started, so that delayed the release of that car. But that was supposed to be a very good competitor to the Models. Well, it was good compared to the Model 3 and Y because of the price and range, but obviously the size is smaller than what those two have, so it kind of depends on what you're looking for in terms of what's a comparable car.
Tesla kind of threw a curveball at us with a battery day, now stating that within 2 years, range will be a 50% improvement.
Well,
it's how they'll be able to achieve 500 miles in the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
For that affordable price, relatively affordable.
Well, it will start to be seen in 2 years. So, I guess the upper end Cybertrucks, Model S and X, if they still continue to exist, the Roadster. But then I don't think we're supposed to see the improvements in the Model 3 and Y until mid 2020s.
We know where Tesla's heading. We have this battery day numbers and all that, but we don't know where others are heading. Do you think that the industry got hit with a shock with that one? Do you think now Tesla's more ahead than they initially thought? Because again, like the Mach-E is just now finally nearing up to range of the Model Y, their direct competitor, and now Tesla just threw a curveball and said, nope, 2 years from now, 50% increase.
See, I don't know how, obviously I'm not a high seating executive in any company whatsoever. But I feel like if I was a competitor, I feel like Tesla's improvements would be kind of numb to me at this point because they've been so dominant over basically since they started with the Model S, at least, that I was looking at battery day, and I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, totally. Half price, within a couple years. Right. This is almost what you come to expect from Tesla to bring out some sort of crazy news. So I feel like at this point, anytime Tesla has some sort of announcement, anyone who sees themselves as a competitor to Tesla is ready for the absolute worst to come, the most show-stopping thing that could possibly happen. So
Right now, it's not a problem
yeah, at this very
because
moment.
the majority of the market's gasoline vehicles. But as we do transition towards fully electric cars, which we're heading, it's gonna be more of a leisure game of catch up to mass panic as these manufacturers try to get caught up to Tesla.
Right. The big problem is that most big efforts for legacy automakers starts at around 2022, 2021. That's when they finally say they're going to start their push. And based on what we have now of what they say they're aiming in their concepts, they might be outdated by the time they come out because a lot of the range, for instance, the range goals is like around 300 miles. And I know range isn't that important for a lot for not, it's not important for everyone, but when you see a car in 2 years with 300-mile range, and who knows what a Tesla's going to have in that time frame. The Model 3 might have 400 miles for all we know, and it's a very big stat to try and overlook. So now you have to wonder that a lot of these concept cars that are aiming for being released in 2 years, they seem competitive right now in this very moment against Tesla, but they're going to have a very hard time being competitive in 2 years with the rate that Tesla is moving at.
And going on to the next lead that they have, being autopilot, who's close to that?
No one.
No manufacturer.
That's their most important advantage, because even if everyone catches up to them in terms of electrification and performance and price in that regard, there's no legacy automaker that's putting as much effort into autonomous driving as Tesla does.
But we have all of these third-party companies like Waymo.
So if...
Do you think they're close?
They're definitely closer than any other legacy automaker and what they can achieve. So, if Waymo and OpenAI and everyone else can get up to that point of level 3+ autonomy, and they can prove that their systems can be basically dropped into any car, then
Waymo and all them have proven more than Tesla has. They've registered fully self-driven miles on roads. Tesla's registered 0.
Correct.
So as far as we know, they are ahead.
As far as we know, yeah.
They have full level. Is it 4 or 5 what they're working on?
Well, I'm sure
Tesla does have a flip
5.
that they can switch, but a switch that they can flip, but they haven't flipped it yet. And until then, we have to just assume that Waymo is in the lead, and Waymo is not looking to make a car.
Right.
They are the future self-driving system of all the other automakers.
But there is one caveat when you do with that, because Tesla's system is specifically for Tesla's cars. So that's all they have to worry about. Does the system work with their own cars? It's all within the same people are making the cars. They're the ones coming up with where the cameras are being put, the sensors, how they interact with the software. That's all in-house. But then there starts to become a problem when you get with a third-party autonomous system from like Waymo, Now you have to make sure, Waymo has to make sure that their system can work with a wide variety of cars. It has to work in like minivans. It has to work in a roadster. It has to work in a family sedan. They have to make sure that there's adequate spacing for all the sensors, and sometimes it might not work. And then BMW's gonna have to call up Waymo and be like, yeah, I don't know if this is working. And then there's a lot more effort to.
Which is why they have to add these big bulky systems to the cars that aren't necessarily appealing.
Yeah.
But I feel like as time goes on, like right now, this is all in testing still. As time goes on, and they do get a contract with someone like, let's say, BMW, the contract will be for a specific car, and they'll have to develop the system for that car. That is Waymo's business.
Right.
Their business will be developing the technology for the individual car. I don't think we're going to have these big, bulky units on cars driving around. Those are just demos right now.
True, but that it becomes a bottleneck, because if you ever have an issue with.
But that's their business.
Sure.
That's the only thing they have to worry about. Once they've accomplished and achieved full self-driving, their only business is developing this.
True, but it's like
these cameras.
It's like with LG being the supplier of batteries for like 10 different automakers, and bottlenecks faced there. And if LG has a problem, then you're SOL, because you can't get your batteries and you don't have the ability to create your own cells. So something might happen with. I mean, imagine if Waymo just overproduces, or they can't meet production. So now if you want an autonomous BMW and Waymo is the only one providing the sensors, now they can't build those BMWs with autonomous features in them because they can't get the sensors in time. So
yeah, but I could say the same for every component inside of a car that's not made by the manufacturer.
True.
All the steering components,
but
the motors.
True, but there's a very few subset of companies that would be able to create autonomous software, rather than companies that can create a seat or the screws or wheels and tires.
Waymo could just be in the software side and just tell BMW to develop it themselves.
I guess
they could just sell the software, sell the technology, sell the chips.
I suppose.
But there are competitors in the autopilot field. I don't think Tesla's the only one. I think it's foolish to think so.
Oh, yeah.
Elon keeps promising this robo-taxi future, and I don't see it happening as just Tesla. I think by the time that comes around, because clearly we're not seeing it in 2021, I don't think we'll see it in 2022 as a fully level 5 system. We might see it as an owner-driven system. By the time we do see robo-taxis on the road, I think we'll have other companies competing in that space. Uber themselves are trying to make autonomous vehicles. Doesn't even have to be one of these new companies. Uber themselves.
Yeah. So, yeah, considering Uber is one of the bigger testers of autonomous systems, it wouldn't be too surprising if by the time robotaxis come out that Uber at least has some sort of beta / pilot / whatever you want to call it, little start of autonomous features. But regardless, even if everyone can get up to level 5 autonomy, we can't overlook the fact that the legalities of it are going to be an issue for basically anyone, and
which could potentially even allow others to catch up.
Yes,
if Tesla's stuck in a legal battle for years to come, their lead, if there is a lead, anyone's lead kind of might be meaningless.
Yeah.
If it's a 10-year battle to make it all legal, then everyone's got 10 years to catch up.
Yeah, who knows how that
So I don't think Tesla's lead in an autonomous vehicle is as strong as everyone says it is. But it's there theoretically. It could be a minor lead, if any.
But it's an easy lead to say, because you can just say Tesla has has autonomous features. It's very hard to explain.
Today, it clearly.
Yeah. It's very hard to explain to someone like, in the future, BMW or Cadillac or whatever is going to use this maybe other company that's working on it now to maybe integrate it in their thing. It's just a much easier selling point to make right now, and obviously you can see it at work.
But today's autopilot system, not level 4, whatever level we're on today, does have competitors. We have adaptive cruise control in a lot of automakers that are side by side with basic Tesla autopilot.
Yeah.
Lane changes and all. We'll see it in the Mach-E as well. So
yeah, Super Cruise for
even
the GM.
today, you can't say that Tesla's the only one. They're the most widely known, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you still have the full self-driving features that, I mean, admittedly are gimmicky, but who's gonna, what car's gonna supposedly drive up to you on the parking lot in the 1 in 5 times it works?
The next lead is OTA. There is not a single automaker adding video games to their cars.
Nope.
That I can safely say.
Nope.
Software updates are not a new thing. We've seen them in the auto industry since software updates have existed. They've traditionally been a very big burden on consumers that had to take their car in for service to do a manually updated software update just for some minor bug fixes, mostly for mechanical issues.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla's taken that idea and said, we can do all that over the cloud. And then they said, well, now that we have access to easily implementing updates, we could just continuously improve these vehicles. And they have.
Yep.
They've added things. They've added Spotify into the cars. They add games. They added YouTube recently, Netflix.
Straight up performance upgrades.
Constantly improving performance, constantly improving software. No one is doing that. No one. And while everyone's saying that, yeah, they're implementing OTA, like Jaguar, I believe, was the first one with the I-Pace, which this car's been on the road now for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they said right out the gate they were going to introduce OTA, and it's going to be great. It's just going to be like Tesla. And yeah, it is. There is OTA, but it's just for the minor bug fixes. It's minor software changes. There's no new additions. That car doesn't feel fresh. Every week I get an update to my car feels new again. That's not the case with the Jaguar I-Pace. Question is, will all these other automakers that are promising OTA continuously improve cars, or will they treat it as past software updates where they're just now wireless?
I think it's just going to be limited to regular bug fixes and stuff like that. I highly doubt that any automaker is going to put forth the effort right now to mess around and putting YouTube or anything on it. And I can understand, because I'm sure they want all their efforts to be putting to creating a good electric car from a engineering and mechanical standpoint before moving on to good software, because obviously if the car is not good, YouTube and Netflix in the center console is not going to save it. So is Tesla's current use of OTAs the future? Possibly. Maybe in 10 years when electric cars have solidified themselves in everyone's model lineup, and everyone's kind of caught up with each other, or at least are in the same semblance with each other. But no, I don't think any car from a legacy automaker in the next 5 years is going to have anything like what Tesla offers.
But here's something to think about. They do offer OTA. They are for minor bug fixes, but it's there. Yes. Which means if they wanted to add Netflix to every car, they can add Netflix to every car. The day they do decide to start working on software and improving and adding things, they can add it to all the cars that are built from here on out.
Well, I'm not
not necessarily just the new ones.
I'm not a software engineer, obviously, but I feel like they have to make sure that whatever software is in the car has to at least be able to be changed to that degree of adding straight up new applications within it. So yeah, I'm sure they can, if they have the foresight to do it, the current code will be able to accept adding in new applications and whatnot in the future. But
I think a lot of automakers are future-proofing their cars like that.
Well,
like the Mach-E, for example, they claim that it's the most powerful infotainment system. That means maybe they don't decide to add Netflix to it today, but if it is the most powerful infotainment system today, that means it can one day run Netflix.
I would hope. I don't really know what most powerful could mean in that context, but best GPU, best CPU, who knows? But yeah, I'm sure they're not oblivious to the fact that a big part of Tesla's popularity is all the Tesla owners talking to their friends about all the new stuff that was added to their cars, such as a whoopee cushion, or the fact that
they recently just hired a bunch of game developers too.
yeah,
So they know that it's a important feature of these cars.
right. So if anyone eh, if there's a single analyst in each one of these companies that even can read, I'm sure he or they have brought up the fact that the software experience is very rapidly growing in importance to future electric cars.
Who do you think will be the first to add Netflix and try to compete with Tesla in the software field? Is there anyone that today stands out as someone who's looking towards it?
Of legacy automakers?
Yeah.
Of
cars coming out within the next 12 months.
I mean, I really don't have any basis. Obviously, this is just a feel question, but I feel like, and I guess this isn't too big of a surprise. This is one of the biggest automakers. I'd say either Ford or Volkswagen. Ford definitely. I'm a big fan of their design. Obviously, I wrote that article about the infotainment system, and clearly they look like they put a lot of effort into designing it. So I imagine that the software engineers over there are, really into what they're doing right now. And I would hope that those people, once again, understand the importance of the software experience. And then Volkswagen obviously has complimented Tesla like 50 million times already. So they also understand what makes Teslas popular. And Tesla has, and Volkswagen has come out with these, some would say soulful concepts. Like they have some very fun designs. They're trying to make their cars less bland, kind of fun. So one way to have fun cars to put Netflix or video games within the infotainment system. So that's who I'm saying, at least.
And clearly all this, fun stuff might seem relatively unimportant, but I think it does drive sales.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the next subject. Who do you think is going to surpass Tesla in sales or catch up to them in sales?
Well, I'm gonna have to say the company with the most amount of factories, which would be the biggest automaker group in the world. That would be Volkswagen. We already know a year ago they stated, like 27 million electric cars by 2027, something like that, late 2020s. So assuming they stick to what they want to achieve, I think they're gonna have a very healthy amount of electric cars on the road. Moving down the line, we have Toyota then, who I think has the second largest amount of production capacity, but they are just missing in action. I don't know what they're doing over there. So Toyota, no. Ford and GM seem to be, trying to have good electrification plans for the future. And if the electric F-150 will be even a fraction as popular as the regular F-150 and Ford can meet the demand for it, then they're obviously going to be producing a decent amount of electric cars in the future. But other than that, Fiat is kind of, I also don't know what they're doing. BMW also, they say they want like 20 models until 2025, but we still haven't really seen what their first couple production capacities for the first couple electric cars are like, so I don't really know how high of a gear they're going to go in. Mercedes is also kind of, the EQC hasn't really been flying out the factory, so honestly, if we're speaking just from an electric vehicle standpoint, Tesla's going to be the clear leader for at least half a decade, I think.
Originally, we were saying all these automakers needed to do was flip a switch and start selling electric cars, and they would naturally sell more than Tesla. But Tesla's grown so large in the last 2 years,
Yeah, all these
and all
factors.
these factories under development. Elon Musk just gave out some ridiculous number, like 1 million a year by, what was it? I don't recall the tweet,
I didn't see it.
but
Probably.
they they still might have the chance to secure this lead as the most sold EV. If they can get to these numbers before anyone else can, they can actually be the most sold automaker in the world.
It's crazy to think about.
It is, considering the fact that they do probably less than 1% of sales worldwide right now as the most valuable automaker.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about, but it seems everyone's on board with that thought.
Yeah.
I think if the people didn't know that they were number one, they wouldn't be the number one automaker by value.
Well, as many people like to say, that Tesla's more than an automaker at this point. So, I mean, definitely the battery tech, the software. Some could say it's multiple companies in one.
Some could say 17.
Some could say 17. I think that's a little bit too much, but 5, 8 companies in one. That's not a wild assertion.
What about their supercharging network?
Supercharging network.
Who's competing there? They got a lot of competitors. Something that all the Tesla fans like to throw up is that no one else has chargers, which is not a fact.
Well, no one else has
not a fact at all.
First-party chargers.
But you don't need
Correct.
them. You have a company like Ford that partnered with multiple companies, multiple charging companies, and now have a network that's larger than Tesla does.
I mean, all the European companies just went with Ionity. And Ionity just is on all the major highways. They're planning to be on all the major highways. They just deal with that.
There's no benefit to having a proprietary network. A Ford system is just like Tesla's system. It's merging all of them into a Ford network. It's all paid through one source. It's all on one map. It's all in the car, in the interface. It's not like people are assuming like, oh, I don't want to have to do Blink, do EV Go, pay for this subscription, figure out how to pay for Electrify America. They're doing it all under one system.
There is kind of a benefit. You just know that superchargers is only Teslas, which was a nice benefit earlier on when there wasn't that many Teslas. But now that there's a lot of Teslas, that becomes less of a benefit. But if every other automaker starts to create EVs in mass, then the Electrify America chargers and whatnot might start to be mobbed by Nissans, Volkswagens, BMWs, and charging space might start to become an issue.
Yeah, I think charging is an industry that's gonna start getting looked at potentially even more than electric cars are, because Tesla's growing exponentially, and they've already exceeded what their superchargers can handle. There's lines at the chargers. You have all of these other automakers jumping in at once. We might need to multiply by 10 a year in order to keep up with demand.
Well, it's definitely one of the biggest hurdles for people, aside from price, is where am I supposed to charge? So we definitely need to expand the foundations of charging networks before we can see any huge booms in EV production.
But do you think that Tesla holds the lead there?
I mean,
since that seems to be the subject of this podcast, where Tesla's lead is.
I feel like a lot of times it's good when everything is done in-house by the same people. So it's like first-party support. I can't really figure out a way for superchargers to see that benefit. I guess it's easier for Tesla to keep track of only their fleet, and it's easier for them to know where to deploy their future superchargers, or where supercharger upgrades need to happen or expansions need to happen, because they noticed that in a certain city the population of Teslas quintupled or something. So I guess maybe supercharger support is still a gonna be a advantage, because I don't think Electrify America is gonna be able to know that 10,000 VW ID4s were sold in the state of Tennessee anytime soon, so they need to bring out more chargers there. So that's the only real big benefit I can see off the top of my head.
So what are your overall thoughts as an EV automaker? Can Tesla be toppled?
Can it? Sure. Not anywhere in the near future. Sorry to say, but everyone kind of.
Is there anyone you have in mind as a close second, or coming up as a second, or is everyone just in the bucket?
I mean, everyone's in the bucket because they've been sleeping. If we're being honest, everyone's been sleeping. All right, the Model S came out in 2012. Okay, we're nearing on 10 years.
I have been telling you guys to buy electric cars since 2012, and y'all still not selling them.
Exactly. Right? The Roadster came out. I understand. It was very low volume. I understand if everyone else looked at that, if GM, if BMW, if Volkswagen looked at it, it's like, whatever. Then the Model S came out, and the Model S was like, all right, here's some range. A couple years later, Model X comes out. Tesla's still not dead. I think at that point, you really should have started coming up with...
The Model S had decent sales.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised no one jumped in on that. To think all that needed to happen was Mercedes comes out with a electric S-Class to compete with the Model S back in 2013 or 14, a couple years after its release. That could have been the end of Tesla. That could have cut their sales in half, and that would have been it. But no one jumped in.
And even if you didn't care about how Tesla's success was, by the middle of the 2010s, climate change debate started to continue. Paris Agreement stuff started to happen. Cities started to implement, laws that by 2030, 2035, 2040, they're going to stop selling gasoline engines. So then at that point, I feel like every company doesn't even need to look at Tesla. They should have started thinking like, okay, well, now this is going to be a financial issue because we need to prepare for competitive EVs. And here's already a proven EV company that has years and years of lead on us. We probably should start doing something about that. But no, maybe they did and it just sucked and they just didn't tell us. Or maybe they really just kind of slept until maybe like 2018, 2019.
It was big oil.
And only then did everyone's switch get flipped and we're like, yeah, maybe we should make some EVs. All right, send out a press release that said we're going to make 20 cars by the next decade. And yeah. But the problem is the majority of the beginnings of these, onslaught of cars haven't happened yet. So I can't even begin to evaluate how good someone's electric cars are. VW's has I think maybe started finally deliveries, but it's in Europe and kind of there were some glitches. Honda just has the Honda E, which is completely for people within the city. I don't know if that's a fair way to evaluate the rest of their electrification efforts. Ford, the Mach-E still hasn't come out, so I don't know. Cadillac, none of their stuff has come out yet. BMW, the i4, the iNext, the iX3, not out. I don't know. Audi, yeah, the e-tron came out is in very small quantities, so it's alright. Range is kind of bad. I don't know. Maybe the e-tron GT will be better. Porsche came out with a Taycan. Good performance. Range was also not that good. Low production, low volume car relatively. So I don't know if that's a fair assumption to make on the rest of their cars. So at this point in time, since everyone is sleeping, I can't give a good evaluation of when and if Tesla can be toppled because as far as I'm concerned, no one has fully tried yet.
But I don't think this is something Tesla can just, sit back and relax.
Oh, of course not.
They need to continue to evolve, continue to innovate, continue to expand. And not let it be a tortoise and hare situation.
Right. But I mean, from what we gathered at Battery Day, if they achieve everything there. I mean, it seems like they are still
Yeah.
trying to continue.
Oh,
They're not sleeping.
They at least have the next decade in their pocket.
Right. Yeah. So, now legacy automakers don't just have to be afraid of, what comes with Tesla, but, startups might start to lap them. Rivian might steal truck sales away.
Nikola Badger is going to be the most sold electric truck on the
Most
market.
sold electric truck most sold car, most sold thing with wheels in the world. Lucid might start stealing sales from S classes, 7 series, So I understand profits is the biggest thing for every single company. I 100% understand that, but they slept. And now now they're far behind.